Is an asteroid coming? NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office budget suddenly spikes to $150 million. Tyler Durden of Zero Hedge Reports, authored by Michael Snyder via the American Dream. It did not make many national headlines, but the proposed budget for NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office was just increased by $90 million. At a time when our national budget is already stretched to the maximum, this seems like an odd thing to be spending so much money on. Well, we know, though, that the Apophis asteroid will be coming around 2035, and that is going to be very bad news for us here on Earth. And that's why they're having all these comet and asteroid missions, redirect missions. They're trying to somehow save life on Earth by redirecting asteroids. So as we see below, the Planetary Defense Coordination Office is only 2 years old. It's in charge of tracking threats posed by near-Earth objects such as asteroids. And needless to say, if a giant asteroid suddenly approached our planet or hit our planet, it would be the greatest catastrophe in modern times. And for those of us that survived, our lives would be radically different from then on. So this threat is real. But in recent years, NASA has assured the public that there are no imminent threats. Now, how has that changed? It's a subject that we're particularly interested in, and so a political article about NASA's asteroid defense program definitely catches our eye. The Trump administration proposed increasing the budget for NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office by threefold, from some $60 million to $150 million, amid growing concerns that humanity is utterly unprepared for the unlikely but still unthinkable an asteroid strike of calamitous proportions. The White House also recently issued a new national near-Earth object preparedness strategy and action plan. It's intended to energize a host of agencies who can contribute to potential ways to prevent such a disaster. First of all, why spend $90 million that we don't have if there's nothing to be concerned about? Well, we are concerned because we have Apophis approaching in the year 2035. Secondly, why issue a brand new plan that is intended to energize a host of agencies who could contribute to potential ways to prevent such as a disaster if there's no disaster looming for the foreseeable future? So something doesn't add up, something doesn't smell right about all of this. According to NASA, there are more than 25,000 asteroids lurking out there that are 140 meters in size or greater. And overall, there are approximately 1 million near-Earth objects that could pose a potential threat. So it definitely makes sense to be prepared for such a disaster, and NASA established the Planetary Defense Coordination Office back in early 2016. So about 2 years ago, Planetary Defense Office. If and when the interplanetary asteroid apocalypse comes, NASA plans to be prepared. In a little noticed move this week, the space agency announced that it had created a directorate for, quote, detecting and tracking near-Earth objects, or NEOs for short. The new Planetary Defense Coordination Office, which despite its science fiction sounding name, is part of a very real effort to ward off potentially deadly impact of asteroids that may hit the planet, is charged with supervising, quote, all NASA-funded projects to find and characterize asteroids and comets that pass near Earth's orbit around the sun, end quote. At that time, it was being reported that one of the primary tasks of this new agency was to find a way to redirect potential dangerous asteroids. So we're talking about the asteroid redirect missions, which are not at all easy. The office is also developing long-term planetary defense goals. They include asteroid redirect concepts that could push the threatened object off course and away from Earth. A program also of interest to the European Space Agency, EPA. NASA is poised for the worst-case scenario as well. Quote, even if intervention is not possible, NASA would provide expert input to FEMA about impact timing, location, and effects to inform emergency response operations. In turn, FEMA would handle the preparations and response planning related to the consequences of atmospheric entry or impact to U.S. communities, end quote. That's what the Space Agency noted. Today, the Planetary Defense Coordination Office is being headed up by former Air Force officer Lindsey Johnson. What he recently told Politico about what a major asteroid impact would mean for our nation was quite chilling. This is what he said. As we studied the problem more, we looked at the effects of an impact of even a 100 plus meter size object, that's about 300 feet. If it were to impact near a metropolitan area, it would be a disaster on a scale more than anything we've tried to deal with in our history. So the threshold that we wanted to look for these things was lowered actually to 140 meters in size based upon a study that NASA sponsored. It would be an existential threat to national well-being. The effects of it would have a significant impact to our society and to our nation as a whole, he said. Once again, why all the fuss if NASA is confident that there are no major threats on the horizon? Or could it be possible that they are not being entirely truthful with us? In a previous article, it was discussed the fact that the head of Russia's space agency, Anatoly Perminov, has publicly stated that an 885-foot wide asteroid known as Apophis, here we go, will surely collide with Earth in 2030s. All right? Apophis, this huge, about 1,000 foot wide asteroid. The 2030s may seem like a distant future right now, but to me it seems like it was just yesterday that the calendar was rolling over from the year 1999 to 2000. So, of course, there are so many threats that the major space agencies don't even know about at this point. For example, the huge meteor that recently exploded over the U.S. military base in Greenland was a complete surprise to the authorities. Also, the Chelyabinsk that exploded over Russia in Siberia. The truth is that the next time we get hit, there will probably be little to no warning, and if the asteroid is big enough, millions of people could lose their lives. According to a very disturbing study that was conducted at the University of California at Santa Cruz, if a very large asteroid hit the Atlantic Ocean, we could potentially see tsunami waves as high as 400 feet slam into the east coast of the United States. Well, we know that the average height of, for example, Long Island is only 50 feet above sea level, and Florida is 15 feet above sea level, as is North Carolina. If an asteroid crashes into Earth, it's likely to splash down somewhere in the oceans that cover 70% of the planet's surface. Huge tsunami waves spreading out from the impact site, like the ripples from a rock tossed into the pond, would inundate heavily populated coastal areas. A computer simulation of an asteroid impact tsunami developed by scientists at the University of California, Santa Cruz, shows waves as high as 400 feet sweeping onto the Atlantic coast of the United States. That's if it hit in the Atlantic Ocean, for example. We're talking about a disaster that would wipe out Miami, Charleston, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, Boston, New York City, all along the eastern coast. In other cities, countless other cities in a single day. Today, 39% of all Americans live in a country that directly borders on a shoreline, so we are extremely vulnerable. Not only Americans, but everybody lives on a shoreline. In Europe, for example, Asia, scientists assure us that it's only a matter of time before we see major giant tsunamis like the one devastating Japan in 2011. Even if no asteroid hits us in the near future, the crust of our planet is becoming increasingly unstable, and this is particularly true along the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean. So part of the job of the federal government is to protect us, and so NASA should be applauded for wanting to be prepared. But they're being entirely truthful with us. Are they entirely truthful? And if not, what is it that they're not telling us? Now I have as you can see here, the video from NASA having to do with asteroid redirect mission. This is the crew segment part. This is actually a real plan for one of their missions. Just like EPA landed a spacecraft on a comet. This is what they aim to do with asteroids. Once they get onto one, close to one, to redirect it. So, obviously something is coming near us. The Apophis is not that far away. This is on Zero Hedge. I'll leave a link below for you for this.